Om Sahnavavatu Sahnau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम् शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्त गोचरं तमगोचरं गोविन्दं परमानन्दं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्. Hari Om. Salutations to all. So we are seeing the portion of Samadhi. Through Samadhi Abhyas, how a person can attain Brahmatma Nishtha. What was said in the second verse, that when Atmanatma Vivechano Svanubhavo Brahmatmana Samsthitihi. That firm abidance in Brahman as one's own true nature, as the self, that portion is this. So through after Nididhyasan comes the Samadhi. And the 356th verse that we saw gave us the qualities. Shanti, Danti, Parama Uparati, Kshanti. All these are very important for experiencing the state of Samadhi. Kurvan nityam kalayati yati swasya sarvatma bhavam. So through this, continuously the seeker cultivates a mind which can turn within and experience the self and then see the same self everywhere, sarvatma bhavam. Tena avidya timira janitan sadhu dagdva vikalpan. And through these one destroys all the thought agitations, imaginations that rise from this blindness of ignorance. Brahma kritya nivasati sukham nishkriyo nirvikalpaha. And that person lives blissfully as Brahman, free from all these egocentric actions and oscillations of the mind. Then it was said in 357 that only people who are able to practice this samadhi and withdraw samahitaye pravilapya bahyam, when they have withdrawn their attention from the external world to the senses, from the senses to the mind, mind to the ego, shrotradi cheta swamaham, and they have withdrawn to what? When the identification is withdrawn, it comes back to Chidatmani, pure consciousness. Yesterday I said about this as Chidabhas, not reflected consciousness. This is Chidatmani, pure consciousness. So when they withdraw the attention and come back to the Atman through steady contemplation, they withdraw identification with all the outside world, senses, prana, mind, ego. Then Taeva Mukta Bhava Pashabandhehi. They become free. So our abidance in the truth and our experience of the self will be based on this capability. How much am I able to withdraw? Not any amount of talking. So na anyetu paroksha kathabhidhayina. See, indirect knowledge, when it is said paroksha katha. So as of now, it is book knowledge. That these are the states, this is the methods, this is the true nature of ours. This is book knowledge. Though it is there in our heart as aham, 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 aham every single minute. It is aparoksha also. At the same time, right now it is paroksha also, meaning it is indirect also, because of identification with the body, mind, intellect. So though it is my true nature and I experience it every single moment, even now when I'm in bondage, but at the moment that is not my focus. I'm thinking of myself as the jiva. So I'm still extroverted. So though it is my true self in my heart every single moment throbbing as I still feel identified with the BMI. So it is aparoksha. Though it is aparoksha, it is still as though paroksha only. It is some indirect knowledge. We are talking about some other self. And mind treats it also like that. The mind objectifies everything. So it objectifies self also. So it makes it separate from itself. Just like we see any other object in the world which is separate from us, separate from the mind, or we make a concept and mind objectifies it as a concept and then tries to grasp it. It retains its identity as the thinker, as Mr. So and so, and then feels the emotions, thinks the thoughts, perceives the objects. Here, this identity dissolves. Then only the aparoksha anubhav happens. So, till that dissolution doesn't happen, this will be indirect knowledge, and one can keep talking, but nothing will happen. So, the emphasis on the ability to sit and withdraw the attention and steadily contemplate on the self. Now, 358. उपाधिभेदात् स्वयमेव भिद्यते चोपाध्यपोहे स्वयमेव केवलः तस्मादुपाधेर्विलयाय विद्वान् वसेत् सदा कल्पसमाधिनिष्ठया. So he says here, upadhi bhedat swayameva bhidyate. Atma is one, but because of the upadhi, it appears as many. Like the electricity is one, but different watts of bulbs, 10 watt, 140 watt, 100 watt. So the different capabilities of the different bulbs makes it appear as though there are lots of differences, but electricity is only one. The power of that bulb differs not because of the electricity, it differs because of the bulb. Same way, Atma is one, but because of the Upadhi, it appears as has become many. So Upadhi Vedat Swayameva Bhidyate. Gurudev has given the example of a prism. One ray of light passes through the prism and it becomes seven. Light is only one, but through the prism when we are seeing it, then it is seven. In the same way here, Atma is one, but through the Upadhi when I am seeing it appears as multiple. Enlivener of body, mind, prana, intellect, ego, so many. That is in one individual. Then so many such individuals. So Upadhi Bhedat Swayameva Vidyate. Cha Upadhi Apohe Swayameva Kevalaha. And when we withdraw the attention from the Upadhi, it is one only, Kevalaha. Swayameva Kevala. It is by itself and it is non-dual. Tasmad Upadher Vilayaya Vidwan. Hence, what should a wise person do? The way to realize the self is withdraw the identification. See, Upadhi Vilaya does not mean destroy the Upadhi. The issue is not the Upadhi, the equipment. The issue is the identification with the equipment that I am this. So that identification has to be withdrawn. Conditioning cannot be dissolved. Conditioning or the Upadhi or the equipment cannot be destroyed. This is the only equipment with which I can realize the self. So body cannot be destroyed. One has to take care of it as a means to do sadhana. So there is no destruction of upadhi. There is a destruction of the identification with the upadhi. That I am not this. And hence the consequent withdrawal in the state of quietude to withdraw the attention That is this. So attention must be withdrawn, identification must be shifted. That is called destruction of the upadhi. Withdraw the attention from the BMI, practice that mind which pays attention to the world of objects, people, situations, to the body, to one's own self image, to the ego. His mind is identified with all these. So now withdraw the attention of the mind through all these and contemplate steadily on Brahman. So identify with that true self, having withdrawn from the not self. That is called destruction of the upadhi. Tasmad upadhir vilayaya vidwan. Vaset sada avikalpa samadhi nishtaya. The wise person should abide in this always. The avikalpa samadhi, it is said. Akalpa samadhi, sorry. Akalpa samadhi here means nirvikalpa samadhi, where the thought identification is transcended, duality is transcended. And the word used is nishtaya. Continuous practice of this nirvikalpa samadhi has to be done to get firm abidance in this. Many karmas and vasanas get destroyed through samadhi abhyas. That will come ahead as we go along. But nishtha is the word. Nishtha means abidance, firm abidance that one cannot be shaken out of it. What does this mean? Firm abidance in nishtha, in samadhi, leads to this atmanishtha, that I am pure consciousness. That knowledge one is not shaken out of. Samadhi one may come out of because of the karma, one will not be able to remain in samadhi for the full time. Very rare people are able to do that. They have such param vairagya and their karma also is exhausted, that extrovertedness is not required. They remain in that state where once they have gone into it, now they don't come back. The body will just perish. They have completely withdrawn the identification and somehow that body is living and then it will just perish. That is very rare people. Samadhi nishtha here means actually atmanishtha. That through this continuous practice of samadhi, the abidance in the self will happen. Whereby once having that firm understanding and intuitive experience that I am pure consciousness, when one abides in that, no more one will think I am this jiva, I am this finite entity. So that is called samadhi nishtha. Continuous practice of nirvikalpa samadhi will destroy ignorance and make a person abide in this atma, which in the Gita Bhagavan calls as yad gatva na nivartante tadhama paramam mama. Having attained which one never comes back to this state of body identification or the jiva bhav. That abode is my true abode, he says. Tadhama paramam mama. That is my supreme abode, meaning as one infinite consciousness. So the upadhi is as though creating the differences. The upadhi actually cannot create a difference. Like the prism appears to have made the light into 7 colors. It's an appearance. Like same way the upadhi appears to have conditioned the self and then made the self into many. See, the word upadhi itself means, in colloquial terms, people use the word upadhi as trouble. But here the word upadhi means equipment. And in Sanskrit, the etymology of this word upadhi is upasamipe yo sthitva swakiyam rupam anyan adadhati. Remaining close, what superimposes its own qualities on the other, that is called upadhi. Upasamipe, upa means nearby, close. Sthitva, swakiyam rupam anyan adadhati. Like the famous example given is the blue cloth. If you take a blue cloth or a red cloth, any colored cloth, near a crystal, then the color of the cloth will reflect in the crystal. Now that crystal will appear blue. Crystal is not blue, but in association with that blue cloth, now the crystal appears to have taken the blue color. The cloth appears to have given its blue color to the crystal. But neither the cloth has given nor the crystal has become blue. It's the association. Same way it is the association of the Upadhi with the Atma, that this one Atma appears as infinite, many forms. This infinite truth appears as finite Jiva entity. The unborn appears as born. Undying appears as dying. Ananda Swarup appears as Dukkha Swarup. So the appearance, because of association with Upasi. And this we are able to see. As long as we are in the waking state, associated with this body, mind, intellect, there is a sense of insecurity, finitude, etc. When we go into deep sleep, we are withdrawn from the Upadhi, no awareness of body, mind, intellect. Then none of these troubles and limitations, nothing exists. Only blissfully I am sleeping. Of course, the difference is avidya is there in that state. Here in Samadhi, avidya is gone. Now somebody asked Gurudev, what is the difference between deep sleep and Samadhi? So Gurudev said deep sleep is like casual leave. Samadhi is like a transfer. He had his unique way of explaining very nicely. So casual leave, you take casual leave and you again return to work. Same place you will go back again. But transfer means you're transferred to some other place completely. You don't come back here. You'll be in a different realm altogether. Same way here. Deep sleep, every night we go into deep sleep and again come back to the same Jiva Bhav. Samadhi is transfer. The identification transferred. I am not the BMI at all. Now you don't come back here. Abide in the Atma. So this is the abhyas that one has to do. And through this, drop the attention and the identification with the BMI. Now comes another very nice example. Let us see, 359. Sati sakto naro yati sadbhavam yekanisthaya kitako bhramaram dhyayan bhramarattvaya kalpate. Sati sakto, one who is attached to the real, naraha, yati sadbhavam, that person becomes one with that reality. How? Ekanisthaya, by single pointedness. Kitako Brahmaradhyayan. Example given is like the worm, when it continuously thinks about the wasp. Kitako Brahmaradhyayan. Brahmaratvaya kalpate. That worm will become wasp. So, what is this example? See, continuously when one thinks about that pure consciousness with single pointedness, that's Param Vairagya and Mumukshutvam when one has, then one is not distracted. One's withdrawal also will become more complete and intense, and one continuously contemplates on Brahman, single pointedness, no other thought. These two things are most important. And Vivekananda actually said, if I have to rework on the education, I would ensure that our students get these two qualities. One is detachment, anasakti. Other is ekagrata, single pointedness. If our children learn these two, single pointedness and detachment, their education is over, because everything else will come through this. And these two only is not taught in our education. Rest everything else is informative knowledge given. What is detachment? Not taught. What is single pointedness? Somewhere concentration, etc. One will tell them be focused, do some techniques, but what is really concentration, how to develop it, nurture it slowly, how to identify their skill, and then give them the focus in that, let them go deep in that, many things like that. So, ekanishtaya, single pointedness and detachment. Detachment was said earlier, detach from the BMI, identification with the BMI. Now comes single pointedness. So he says, Sati Sakto Naro Yati, one who is attached to the real. What is the meaning of attached to the real? Meaning one who intensely wants the real, pure consciousness, one wants nothing else. The Tivra Mumukshutvam is indicated here. That I want only that, I don't want anything else. And I want here and now to be liberated, to know the self here and now. Sati Sakto Naro Yati. That person will become one with the reality. Why? Because of that intense longing and single pointedness. Ekanishtaya. The example given here is Kitako Brahmaradhyayan. So this wasp brings a small worm and puts it in the hole. And now this wasp is sitting at the mouth of the hole. The worm is inside. And the wasp goes on stinging the worm. Every time the wasp stings the worm, it goes through excruciating pain. Now Gurudev has written that if we are stung by a wasp, the amount of pain we will feel is so much. Now imagine that small little worm, this huge body of ours, one wasp sting can cause us excruciating pain. Now what is that small worm's body going to go through? So that worm is terrorized. And every time the wasp stings, that worm gets shock. It gets a lot of pain and it goes on fearing that wasp. In the fear of that wasp, it is continuously thinking of the wasp. And hence what happens? Eventually, this wasp, because it goes on stinging, this worm is also thinking only of the wasp. Eventually, this worm becomes the wasp. The power of thought is so much, and especially the single pointed thought. The wasp is not thinking anything else. The worm is not thinking anything else. It's only thinking about the wasp and it is scared, now one more sting will come. And meditating on that wasp, the worm becomes a wasp. It's called metamorphosis of the worm into the wasp. Not the natural metamorphosis of a, worm into this butterfly. That's a biological metamorphosis that happens. This is psychological metamorphosis. So biological metamorphosis is the natural process. So the worm is there and then the caterpillar, it keeps eating leaves and then it becomes the pupa, then it hangs, inside that it is developing and then that pupa burns, that cocoon, sorry, not pupa, that cocoon, it goes into a cocoon and then that cocoon bursts and the butterfly is out. There's a biological metamorphosis. That biological metamorphosis happens at its own pace. This is psychological metamorphosis, where this worm is continuously thinking of the wasp. And because it is thinking of the wasp all the time and it has nothing else to think, it is so scared that the power of that thought makes that worm into the wasp. So when we say as we think, so we become, that is what this is. Psychological metamorphosis. So through psychological metamorphosis, many things can be achieved in the world. Single pointedness of the mind, and I put my mind to it and just work at it. I can achieve any success. Weak people become strong through psychological metamorphosis because they invoke strength more and more and more and visualize that. so many goal setting workshops, etc. They will tell you, picture your goal, where you want to be. Don't worry about where you are. When you set a goal, think big, set your goals and make a picture of it. And then every day see that picture. Every day visualize that you have already achieved that. If you keep visualizing you have already achieved that and how you are feeling and what you are going through, etc., the mind will reach there. Eventually you will achieve that success. The psychological metamorphosis. In today, even in sports, etc., you'll see there is so much of counseling, psychiatrist involvement, and the single pointedness training, visualization, positive psychology, everything. Because the mind has to be trained. So psychological metamorphosis requires effort to remain single pointed. He ekanishtaya, I said here. In the example here, of course, the worm does it out of fear. But see, this is another point to learn here. Here, this worm may do it out of fear. We may do it out of love for the goal. But either ways, the mind which entertains something continuously will absorb all those qualities and transform into that. Hence, one should be very alert. What does one entertain in the mind? See, one psychological phenomenon is this, no, that what we continuously resist, we become that. That's the strange thing. What we continuously entertain in our mind, paying attention to that, that we become, that is understandable. That suppose I think positive all the time, I will become positive. If I invoke love in my heart continuously, then I will become loving. That is understandable. But what I resist also, I will become that. So if I say that I don't want to be, so the research has proved that, parents and children. So now children sometimes grow up and then they see the parents and then they say, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to do these things. I don't want to behave in this way. I don't want to act in this way. And they continuously who think this way, at one point, they are doing exactly what the parents were doing. Why? Because though they are seeing that they don't want to do, they don't want to do, they don't want to do, the mind does not understand don't. Mind understands only do. So it doesn't know what not to do. It only knows what to do. So if I said, I won't get angry, I won't get angry, I won't get angry, I will again get angry. Why? Because the mind understands only anger. It doesn't understand won't get angry. That's why whatever we resist also, we become that. Then how to overcome weakness? Think of the strength. Don't resist. How to overcome anger? Don't say, I won't become angry. Invoke compassion, invoke empathy, that. So here it is that the worm is going through this by fear. It is going on thinking of the wasp. Motivation may be fear, motivation may be love, motivation may be anything else, happiness. But the fact is the mind is entertaining this. When the mind is entertaining this, it will transform into that. That's the power this mind has. And that's why this mind has to be used so carefully. Now, biological metamorphosis, I said, is a natural process of biology. It will happen and it's at its own pace. Psychological metamorphosis can be by one's effort. To a certain extent, psychological metamorphosis will affect the body also. That's another thing to learn from this. The worm and the wasp example. The worm continuously thinking of the wasp transforms at the body level also to become the wasp. So whatever we continuously think about will affect not only our mind, it will affect the body and our success and achievements outside also. Which today the doctors are telling so clearly that every single thought that we think translates onto the body as a contraction in the muscles, as release of hormones. It is happening. And the more the stress one has, more weight one puts on, more diseases one has. That's the direct psychosomatic effect of the mind on the body. So what we think in the mind continuously has also impact on the body. The worm actually transforms to become the wasp. So power of the mind is such that it will affect the body. It will affect the surroundings. It will change the environment. The single pointed mind is like that, very, very powerful. So one has to use this very carefully. So it is induced. It is one can put effort and one can speed up things. That is one of the purusharthas that one can do. Single pointedness is great sadhana. One transforms. Now, the third level of metamorphosis is called the spiritual metamorphosis. What is spiritual metamorphosis? See, here the worm transforms to become the wasp. This is not like that. The jiva who is finite cannot transform to become infinite by continuously saying, I am Brahman, I am Brahman, I am Brahman. It is not as we think, so we become. It is as we think, so we become is the law applicable in finite world. In the Advaitic aspect, when we want to realize absolute truth, no amount of thought of pure consciousness can make the finite jiva into infinite. Spiritual metamorphosis is that infinite which was already infinite, but by delusion thinking of itself as finite, that ignorance and delusion goes away and one again comes back to infinite. That is spiritual metamorphosis. So it is not that the worm becomes the wasp, like that finite becomes the infinite. No. Here worm and wasp are two different entities. Example given here is for single pointedness. I am taking that example to another deeper aspect so that we don't have confusion. Because many people think like that as we think, so we become. If you think of Brahman, you will become Brahman. That is, in a limited context, correct to say that if you continuously meditate on Brahman, you will become Brahman, to make us just single pointed. But it is not that this Brahman is a product of the single pointed thought. Brahman is not produced by single pointed thought. Every other achievement in the world, in the finite realm, through the single pointed thought, I can achieve that. But Brahman is not achieved by single pointed thought because it is the source of thought. It is the illuminer of all thoughts. It remains unaffected by all thoughts. Thoughts cannot remain without Brahman. Brahman remains without thought. So it is all the time existing. It is changeless. Thoughts are changing. So Brahman is not realized. The self is not realized by continuously thinking and then Jiva becomes the Atma. No. Jiva is already that Atma, pure consciousness. By ignorance, the Jiva was falsely thinking of itself as finite entity, when its true nature is infinite. Then what will this do? Continuously, one who is thinking about the reality, through that continuous thinking, the false notions and ignorance, that is removed. When that is removed, the reality which already was, will be all time, that again reveals. So that is called spiritual metamorphosis. We are saying it metamorphosis only because from ignorance one comes into the state of knowledge. Breaking that shell of ignorance, one comes into the state of knowledge to discover one's own true self. Hence it is sati sakto naro yati sadbhavam yeka nishtaya. Inherent nature of ours is pure consciousness. So Gurudev also has said here in the second part of this commentary, where he says that the worm which the wasp brings is really a potential wasp in its pupa stage. Zoological observations prove that after the egg of the wasp develops into a larva and molds into a pupa, the mother wasp brings it to the prepared nest for protection, and under its watchfulness, the pupa slowly grows to become a full-fledged wasp. So this is the second part of the analogy, where the pupa is already potentially, the worm is already potentially a wasp. This is possible for the worm who is inherently a wasp to become a wasp. So there are both categories. It can be an ordinary worm also, not a potential wasp. An ordinary worm, out of continuous fear of that wasp stinging it, transforms to become a wasp. That is one category of example. Other category of example is this, where the worm is actually the wasp's worm. And then it becomes, through this process of larva, pupa, all that, it becomes the wasp. So the second part of the analogy is to tell us that inherently we are divine, and by continuously thinking of the pure consciousness, the false identification we have created, that goes away. Atma reveals itself. That's the meaning here. Which is what he continues in this next shloka also. Now he connects to the yogi. The wasp example, now he connects it to the yogi. Kriyantara saktimapasya kitako dhyayan yathalim yalibhavam richati tathaiva yogi paramatma tattvam dhyatva samayati tadeka nisthaya. Kriya antarasaktim apasya, leaving all attachment to actions and every other activity. Kitako dhyayan yatha alim. Just like this worm goes on thinking of the wasp, it doesn't do anything else. It is only thinking of the wasp. Then what happens? That becomes hi alibhavam mrichati. It becomes the wasp. In the same way, tathaiva yogi paramatma tattvam. The yogi meditates on the paramatma tattva. Dhyatva samayati, becomes one with it. How? Tadeka nishtaya, by single pointedness. So now this is what is the difference. This is the spiritual metamorphosis we were talking about. That through continuous contemplation on the self, the false notions that are created, those will get removed. Self is not produced. Self is already there. Only the false notions get removed, self reveals. So the yogi with single pointedness destroys all the false notions and comes to experience that state. For that, the yogi has to withdraw, just like the worm is not doing anything else. All activities of the worm have stopped, and the worm is inside one small hole. So that worm is not seeing anything else, worm cannot escape anywhere else. And in that worm, in that hole, that worm is put, and the wasp goes on stinging. Same way it is this. That the yogi has withdrawn from all activity, no distractions of the mind, as though into the whole of the mind one has gone into, personality one has gone into, and there continuously thinking only of the Atman. False notions created that I am this Jiva, that goes away, and Atma reveals. Now this is very subtle, not perceptible to the senses or to the mind, but a special quality of mind is required, then one experiences. So that is 361. अतीव सूक्ष्मं परमात्म तत्त्वं न स्थूल दृष्ट्या प्रतिपत्तुमर्हति समाधिनात्यन्त सुसूक्ष्म वृत्त्या ज्ञातव्यमायैरति शुद्ध बुद्धिभिः. So ativa sukshmam paramatma tattvam, this supreme reality is extremely subtle. Ativa sukshmam, sukshma itself means subtle, ativa means very very subtle, extremely subtle. Now why it is extremely subtle? because it is the illuminer of all. Gross is the eye or the senses. Subtler than the eye or the senses are the pranas. Subtler than the prana is the mind. Subtler than the mind is the buddhi. Subtler than the buddhi is the ego. Subtler than the buddhi is the ego. Subtler than ego is atma. The Gita also gives this order of subtlety. Same order. Indriya, then mana, then buddhi. Same order it will come. In the Kathopanishad also it comes. Indriyabhya parahyartha arthebhyascha param manaha manasastu para buddhi buddheratma mahan paraha. So Kathopanishad also will give, Gita also will give, third chapter of the Gita it will give. Same order of subtlety. So Atma is the subtlest enlivener of all these. Now how can any of these which are enlivened by the Atma come to know the Atma? Na sthula drishtya pratipattum arhati. It is not available for gross direct perception through the senses. That oh, this is consciousness or this is God. Cannot perceive through the physical senses. Then samadhina atyanta susukshma vritya. Only in samadhi, in extremely subtle aspect where through contemplation we destroy these false notions of I, Jnatavyam Aryahi. This truth can be known by the noble seeker. See, Arya word doesn't mean some Aryan race. Arya word means a gentleman or a nobleman. So noble people or seekers, whoever they may be, if they develop this Sukshma Vritti, now again when we say Sukshma Vritya, we should not think that by a thought Brahman is produced. No, by the Sukshma, the subtle thought of continuous, subtle, single-pointed thought that I am Brahman destroys all the wrong notions. And then that thought also dissolves. And then what happens? A special category of thought arises that is called Akhandakara Vritti. That is this, Sukshma Vritya. Ati Sukshma Vritya it is. Samadhina Atyanta Susukshma Vritya. See the adjectives used here. Atyanta, extremely. Su, more. Sukshma Vritya, subtle thought. Extremely more subtle thought, meaning Akhandakara Vritti will rise. Akhandakara Vritti is the special thought which arises, which never goes after that. See, every other thought rises, falls, rises, falls. This Akhandakara Vritti will not fall. Every other thought will illumine some finite object. Akhandakara Vritti doesn't illumine Brahman as an object, but it makes that person aware, I am Brahman full time. That awareness never goes. Through that Akhandakara Vritti, see, Akhandakara Vritti is the proof of realization also. Many people ask, how do I know I am realized? Akhandakara Vritti will arise. You will know this is the Akhandakara Vritti. Now you are established. Now one will not come down into that state of delusion. So through practice of Samadhi, continuously when this mind destroys the false notions and this special Akhandakara Vritti will rise, only through that one will realize the self. There is no other way to realize the self. Jnatavyam Aryai Ati Shuddha Buddhi. Only by these people who are extremely subtle and pure. See, Sukshma was already said, that is subtle. And Shuddha is said now, that is pure. These two qualities are required. Buddhi must be purified of Raga and Dvesha through Nishkama Karma Yoga, Seva Bhav, and Buddhi can be made Ekagra by Upasana, and it will be made Sukshma by Nididhyasan on Atma Tattva. Only through such a Buddhi, which is Sukshma Buddhi, Ekagra Buddhi, and Shuddha Buddhi. Through these, when this Buddhi cultivates these qualities, then this Akhandakara Vritti will rise. Through that one will know I am Brahman. It is not available for any gross perception outside or imagination of the mind. It is not imagination of the mind. because that will come and go. This Akhandakara Vritti is a special Vritti which as though illumines Brahman. It cannot illumine Brahman, but that's a figurative way of saying. Because its power is coming from Brahman, so how it will illumine Brahman? But the idea is to know that instead of seeing that I am Jiva, one knows I am Brahman. That thought. And that thought never goes. That state is Akhandakara Vritti. And through that one will realize. So, and how will Akhandakara Vritti arise? Only in Samadhi. When the withdrawal is complete from the BMI and steady contemplation is happening, then that ignorance, etc., get destroyed. And because there is still this equipment which is there, but my identification is not with the equipment, this Akhandakara Vritti will be there in the equipment. For the master, one is abiding in the self-knowledge. Akhandakara Vritti is a byproduct of the Samadhi Avastha. And that is a proof that established in the truth. And so this is where it is. How to experience this state? This is why one has to practice Samadhi. So when people say that, walking meditation, talking meditation, drinking meditation, eating meditation, that is using the word meditation very colloquially. If I want to realize the self, I cannot experience it through all that. I will walk also and contemplate. So my vidhyasana over, I will realize suddenly. No. Samadhi abhyas has to happen. See, this is one chain of thought. There are some other people who think enlightenment can happen anywhere, anytime, anyhow to anybody. It doesn't depend on any qualification, doesn't depend on any process, because it's your own true nature, it will just reveal. Now, if one says, then there are a lot of flaws also in that. And also one will think that if it happens to anybody, anyhow, anywhere, anytime, then why should I put a Purushartha? I will live the way I want to live. Anyhow, anytime, anything will happen. That is not possible. Then law of karma only we are negating. If I live such an immoral life or do anything anyhow, or even if I live a moral life but fully steeped in sense pleasure, the capability only is not there for enlightenment to happen. The mind is so steeped in sense enjoyments. If you say, no, Atma Tattva, the grace of Ishvara will do it. So then we are saying Ishvara is partial. So a lot of flaws are there in that. And what we just saw, Shanti, Danti, Uparati, Titiksha, all these values, they are required to go into Samadhi. So that is one clear thought process, that how this gradually, step by step, Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasan, Samadhi Abhyas will lead to Nirvikalpa Samadhi, destruction of ignorance, realization of the truth. Akhandakara Vritti has to rise. Proper steps one can walk, and so many masters have realized through this. It's a time-tested method. And hence this practice of Samadhi, more and more required to create Akhandakara Vritti. Now, continuing ahead, another example is given of this gold. Yatha suvarnam patupaka shodhitam tyaktva malam swatma gunam samrichhati tatha manas sattvarajastamo malam dhyanena santyajya sameti tattvam. So yatha suvarnam, just like the gold, patupaka shodhitam, when it is heated in fire, then tyaktva malam, it will give up the impurities. Tyaktva malam swatma gunam samrichhati, and it will shine in its true splendor. In that same way, tatha manaha sattva rajas tamo malam. The impurities of the mind are sattva rajas tamas, three gunas. Dhyanena santyajya sameti tattvam. By meditation, one will be able to drop, just like the gold drops the impurities in the fire. In this heat of meditation, the sattva, rajas, tamas get destroyed, and one attains the reality. Sameti tattva. One attains Brahman. So now, what is the example is here? Just like we saw in that worm example, the second category of worm is potentially a wasp only. So here also, the gold is inherently splendorous. It is shining. It is brilliant. But when we mine it, it is full of impurities. The gold ore has a lot of impurities. Then it has to be melted. So in the fire, when it is melted, smelting it is called. Smelting, yes. Smelting of gold. So when it is smelted, then what happens? The impurities all will fall aside and gold remains in its pure beauty, shine. The shine is inherent to the gold already. Impurities are only covering it. Same way, the pure consciousness, Brahman, is already our inherent nature. And what is the mala that is covering? Sattva, Rajas, Tamas is the mala. Three gunas. Now these three gunas, how to remove them? See, we have seen earlier, tamodvabhyam rajas sattva sattvam shuddhena nashyati. Tamas goes by rajas, rajas goes by sattva, sattva goes by shuddha sattva or pure contemplation, which will destroy the bhav that I am a jiva, which has become very weak. In rajas and tamas, that bhav is very strong. In sattva guna, it has become very weak, and that ego is very easily able to surrender. So step by step it will happen. When I'm in a tamasic state, I cannot be telling people that, I cannot tell that person to meditate. You are lazy, lethargic, but meditate to realize consciousness. That person cannot meditate. That person has to be made dynamic. So tamodvabhyam, rajas sattva. So this tamas will go by this rajaguna. Make that person dynamic, active, ambition, make that person do something for yourself, make yourself glorious, prosper, all that. Then from there come to sattva, from rajas to sattva. Once a person is dynamic, then the channelizing of that effort can happen towards the noble cause. So do the same work but for a higher purpose. Come to sattva. Then when the mind has sattva guna, then listen, reflect, contemplate or connect to divinity through God, sadhana, bhakti, any path one takes, yoga, and reduce the ego, make it thin, gain more knowledge, and then steady contemplation, go beyond sattva also. Here what is said, dhyanena santyajya, all the three impurities are removed by dhyana. So what we should remember here is, if you remember, we have done each guna has two aspects. One is the primary aspect of the guna, other is the secondary aspect of the guna. So primary aspect of tamo guna is avidya, ignorance. And secondary aspect of that is laziness, lethargy, procrastination, carelessness. Secondary aspect. That secondary aspect goes by creating ambition and all that. But ignorance is the primary aspect. That will go by dhyan. Same way rajoguna. Primary aspect of rajoguna is attachment, restlessness. Now the secondary aspect of rajoguna is greed, insecurity. Restlessness actually also will come into the secondary aspect, bodily restlessness. So primary aspect is attachment. Rajo ragatmakam vidhi. Tamastu ajnanajam vidhi. Mohanam sarvadehinam. So tamoguna's primary aspect is ignorance. Rajoguna's primary aspect is attachment. The secondary aspect of tamas is laziness, lethargy, ignorance, indulgence, all that. Secondary aspect of rajoguna is greed, insecurity, uh, insistence, too much activity, restlessness at the body level. These are all karmana mashama spurha. I have to do something constantly. That is rajoguna. Sattva-guna primary aspect is purity, peace, balance, equanimity. And then the secondary aspect is, again, Sattva-guna secondary aspect is not much different from the primary aspect. Primary aspect of Sattva-guna actually is knowledge. Tatra Sattvam Nirmalatvat Prakashakam. Knowledge is the primary aspect, because in Sattva Guna maximum knowledge one can gain. Mind is in a sattvic state, learning state. Secondary aspect of Sattva Guna will be this equanimity and quietude and peace, because these will further strengthen knowledge. Now when we say tamas is overcome by rajas, so secondary aspect of tamas is overcome by dynamism. Secondary aspect of rajas is overcome by secondary aspect of sattva. So to the extent that effects of sattva, rajas, tamas, they become lesser, the primary aspect of sattva, rajas, tamas I can deal with in contemplation. When more and more sattva is created through equanimity, through selfless service, through getting out of laziness, lethargy, etc., then in meditation what will I do? Through steady contemplation, the ignorance of the self, which is tamo guna, goes. Automatically the attachment, that is the rajoguna primary aspect, also will go, because I am attached to the feeling I am body, that I am negative. And knowledge also goes. These two I can understand. Ignorance goes, attachment goes. Knowledge goes means what? Intellectual knowledge goes. Intuitive knowledge arises. Till now it was verbal knowledge. What was said? No, aparoksha katha. Is that a paroksha katha gone? Aparoksha it will become now. Then one has transcended sattva also. So that's why I said tatha mana sattva rajas tamo malam. This impurity it will give up. Then dhyanena santyajya sameti tattvam. That person attains one supreme reality, because the cause is removed. Ignorance gone, attachment that I am the body, mind, intellect, that gone, and informative knowledge also gone. Through steady contemplation, intuitive knowledge arises. So that is the experience of the reality then. So we continue tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.